And it is the most rewarding thing to see someone click and go, I forgot I had a dream. Like, I forgot I love to paint. Like, I forgot I fill in the blank. And so that's my favorite thing. And to just see people come alive and be creative again and excited about life and really coming home to themselves. To me, creativity is doing something new, right? Inventing something, whether it's a picture you draw, a bracelet you make, a company you build. You know, being creative really is, there's a newness and sort of, it's creation, right? And so I think that, to your point, unlived dreams, I think, are one of the most suffocating factors in the entire world.
Hello, welcome to today's episode of Creativity Boost Podcast. Today I'm excited about what we're going to be talking about. Have you ever felt disempowered? You're full of ideas, but you feel disempowered. You feel like something is holding you back. You feel stuck. You have these plans, you have these goals that you've written down, you have these visions that you would like to accomplish, but somehow you just feel paralyzed. You feel that there's this fear crippling you from accomplishing your goals and manifesting your creativity and reaching for your potential. Well, today in this episode, we're going to talk about ways that you can overcome that. And specifically, we're going to be talking about how to be empowered to make your creative ideas happen, how to be empowered to solve problems through creativity. And I'm also excited about the person that I brought on the show today because she has a very unique name. In fact, her name speaks of what we are going to be talking about today. Her name is Jenny Powers. Now, to also add to the excitement, she authored a book titled Empowered, right? So you can see that my guest today is all about empowerment. It is all about fixing the problem of disempowerment. And I believe that in today's discussion, you're going to find something that will, stimulate you and empower you to manifest your creativity in a way that you have never imagined. So today, help me welcome Jenny Powers. Hello, Jenny. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here. I love that you are such an expert and leader in sort of pushing forward this idea of creativity. I think it's something that is just essential to living our best lives, and that is at the core of what I believe and what the message that I want to share. So I'm really thrilled to be here and honored to be your guest.
Wow, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for coming on the show. When I saw your name, I was really, really attracted because the name jumped right on my face, Jenny Powers. And when I also learned about all the wonderful things that you've accomplished with your book and how that you've also created a program, the 100 Days of You, and many other fantastic things that you're doing to also empower women and men across geographies and across industries to become their best self, I felt like we needed to have this conversation. So I'm looking forward to this conversation actually. And to kick this off, I'd just like you to tell us about your journey and how you came about your book that you titled Empowered and how you came about that name. Yeah.
Of course. So for me, it's been a very kind of unexpected entrepreneurial journey. So without making this a very long story, I would say my first dream in my life was to be an actress. That was sort of my goal, my dream, my sort of big lofty. I would picture myself, accepting an Oscar and all these things. And I sort of spent, 10 years living that dream. I was in New York for a bit of time, and then I was in Los Angeles doing film and TV, and ended up sort of living it and then kind of leaving it, and sort of started on this next chapter of just one of the truths in my book is be willing to not know, to really be able to have the courage to step into the unknown. I think so often in order to take risks, we have to be willing to sort of let go of what we've been doing and sort of open up to what we may not know. And sometimes that's where I think the magic happens. So for me, it was a very simple conversation with my dad. I was living in LA. I was working on the executive side in the entertainment industry and kind of had this life and things were good. And he sort of said, it sounds like what you're doing doesn't feel important to you. And something about that word important really triggered everything. It resonated, it really hit home. And again, longer story, in a sort of succinct fashion, I sort of left my life in LA, packed everything up, moved back in with my parents in Massachusetts, and sort of said, what's important to me? And And really that word just was the simple thing that led me. I was a dancer and I'd created these dance classes to empower women to embrace and celebrate and cherish their bodies. And I loved them, but I sort of said to friends one day, but I think my blog, I had written a blog that was on the website of my dance classes. And I said, I kind of just really love this blog. Jokingly, sort of said, what if I wrote like a blog book? And kind of passed it off, didn't really think anything of it. And then the next day I got on a plane and I took my WordPress blog and I put it in a Word document and I just started writing. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just felt this urge to focus on this. I didn't tell anybody. And then 4 months later, I had written my book. And the idea, it's actually a brilliant question that you ask. I don't think anyone in all of the interviews and everything I've done has ever asked, how did you come up with the title? And I don't actually it was just there. It was just, I have spiritual beliefs. I think that I am the vessel for this message. I think it's, through me, not necessarily of me. I am here to create and to use my creativity to hopefully do good in the world. But it was just, the title was just kind of there. And I think that, to zoom out a little bit, the name of my company is The Empowered Woman, and the way that sort of this idea of empowered, empowerment, that word came to me. I sort of woke up in the middle of the night. This was when I was an actress, and sort of said, The Empowered Woman, like that's a great name for a company. My last name is Powers. My middle initial is M. The Empowered Woman. Now, I had no idea for a company. I was not looking to be an entrepreneur. I was focused on being an actress, but I kind of, through a number of synchronicities, ended up buying the domain name, The Empowered Woman. And that was sort of a few years before I'd written my book. And so all of that sort of collaboratively coming together, I've sort of been on this journey of empowerment. And it really is, I am a woman. I'm passionate about helping women. I found that my book, and I have a journal and a workbook and a course, resonates with men as well. Because I think, the tagline in my book is Empowered, the Woman's Guide to Following Your Heart. And I think whatever that is for each of us, whether it's intuition, gut instinct, your inner compass, your inner guidance, following your heart, that sort of inner knowing, I think it's universal. I think when those of us that are connected to that, gender aside, race, diversity, age, wherever you live, I think it's universal. And so that's kind of, the overall message of how I want to empower and inspire.
Amazing. Now, that brings me to my next question, because like I said in the introduction of this episode, a lot of people feel disempowered. I've met people who have great ideas, who know they can do more, who know they can be more, but they just feel disempowered. If they feel paralyzed, they can't really reach for their goals, reach for their dreams. They can't manifest their creativity as they should. So why do people find themselves in this situation most of the time?
It's a great question. And I think that for me, it really comes back to a little bit of what I just shared, that I think we get disconnected from ourselves. I think that it's, I think in this day and age as well, there's so much more discussion around, I actually speak a lot on mental health as well. I'm kind of a mental health speaker as well. So there's our mental health, there's our physical health, there's our emotional health, there's our spiritual health. Like, I think that the conversation is opening up a little bit in terms of sort of our holistic or kind of 360 success. I think it used to be a little bit more like, well, I go to the gym and I'm physically healthy and that means I'm healthy. And I think that there's just more discussion around kind of who we are as human beings, in all that we are. And I think that people feel disempowered because they're disconnected from their own truth. So I think that it's sort of going back to ourselves and, again, trusting ourselves and redefining that relationship that I think that we truly, at the end of the day, we know what makes us feel alive, what makes us feel empowered. And that might change. What makes you feel alive and empowered and, excited and full of, kind of this zest for life could be different at 21 versus 31, 41, 51. We all evolve. But I think that a lot of times I, have a mindset coach and our brains and our minds are incredibly essential and necessary. But I do think that the sense of sort of our hearts and our guidance and that inner knowing, I just think that there's not as much focus and sort of help and work and research around, reconnecting to that. And I think in my work, the simple question, what is your heart telling you, or what is your gut telling you? we all know, right? We all know. And I think it's just getting back to that trust of ourselves. My mindset coach, a woman named Tracy Litt, is brilliant. And she said, being an entrepreneur is sort of a wrecking ball to who you've been, but then it's a journey back to self-trust. And I truly believe that for all of us, it is whatever form, whether you're an entrepreneur, you're a corporate executive, you're a parent, you're a social worker, whatever form your purpose takes, I think that really it's truly a journey back to ourselves, because that is where I think the disconnect between, those of us that feel empowered and those that sort of feel disempowered is sort of that, it's almost like an umbilical cord back to ourselves.
Wow, that's interesting. Now, I wrote a book titled Ignite Your Creativity, and in that book I covered like 10 switches that we can use to ignite our creativity. And the general idea is that, okay, we need to turn on that switch, and if we don't turn on that switch, the power may be there, but there won't be any flow through the circuit from where the power is getting generated to the light bulb, right?
Yes.
So And there's something you said that really strikes me about following your gut. And one of the switches actually that I feel ignites creativity is intuition. So can you tell us a bit about how to, release or ignite our creativity with that switch of intuition, or better put, by following your gut?
Yeah, of course. And I love your analogy. That's great. The sense of sort of, the outlet and the cord and the flow through that, right? And I think for me, my book is 100 guiding truths. Every page is a standalone page. It's 100 guiding truths that I think empower us to live our best lives and awaken to our best selves. And so for me, I've used a number, I give a bunch of different keynotes and I do workshops and I do sort of breakouts, and each one I kind of keep coming back to these truths. And I think that whether it's, again, the first one that pops into my head, honestly, is refuse to conform. And the page of my book is refuse to conform. Like, who do you want to be? What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? Like, what is important to you? And so I really feel like, in a very tangible way, my book, and I have a companion workbook that is, 100 pages as well. Just, a simple 10-minute exercise, a kind of reflective. So refuse to conform is in the book, and then refuse to conform has its companion workbook page. What are the areas that you think you're conforming? What are the things you would love to do if you didn't sort of care what other people thought? And so for me, in terms of getting back to that intuition, I think a lot of it is, and I love what you opened with, in this sense of not feeling the permission or the ability or the freedom to dream or to ignite your creativity. And I think so much of the work that I do in using, quite simply, my book, my workbook, as you mentioned, I have a course, 100 Days of You, is really getting to know ourselves at a deeper level. I think that we can spend so much time, taking care of others, and we have jobs and we have responsibilities, and our energy is going outward. And I think so much of reconnecting to that intuition, quite simply, I think silence. I think if our lives are very busy. I'm not saying you need 2 hours to sit in silence and go within. But even this morning, I sort of was like, okay, I'm kind of really focusing, on this mental health sort of part of my company because of my own mental health struggles, and I think the world really needs it. And I was sort of like, but this is new, and I've never done this before, and how do I become a leader and an expert? And I just kind of sat down, I shut down my computer, I set a timer for 5 minutes, and I just kind of sat with myself and kind of breathed. And it's interesting how you have this feeling, and I think a lot of it is, nurturing our bodies, caring for them. I think that there's so much, go to the gym and lose 20 pounds and, be physically healthy. But I think that sense of realizing that we are housed in these bodies. And I think that just being still, and I think taking, some time and, whether it's yoga or going for a walk, or for me, getting outside and just being out in nature is incredibly helpful in sort of getting back to that intuition. But I think, quite honestly, it's just feeling the permission that you're allowed to trust yourself, right? You're allowed to sit there and say, my mother, my boss, my spouse, my child might say this, but I know this to be true and this feels right. And so I think in the things that you're doing, which I love, because I also think one of my tools to get to my intuition is creativity. A lot of times I will take out just a piece of printer paper and get my kids' markers, and I'll just start sort of coloring. And I think switching your brain to not be like, okay, I need to figure this out and I need to be successful. It's like this creativity leads us back to that sort of childlike joy. And I truly believe that's where our desires are. That's where, like, think about when we're kids, like, we know, right? We're not like, oh, I'm going to ask we just know. We have this inner knowing of joy and excitement, and I'm going to go jump off, go down the slide and jump off this platform. We're not as afraid as we are as adults. So I think that, again, I could probably do a whole episode on this, but I think stillness, sort of just getting quiet with yourself, moving your body, whatever that is, like getting out and getting some fresh air, and just, listening. I really think I'd be interested, people that have never tried that, that are watching this, to sit for 5 minutes, even if you have to write down something you're unsure about, some part of your life that you want to make a change or you want to experience something new, and then just sit. I truly believe if you empower yourself to trust what comes, I think it's far simpler than it appears to be.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, in your work with people, have you ever observed anyone who felt disempowered and all of a sudden, after implementing your principles, was able to release that power? And what was it like for them? The reason I'm asking you is just to give someone listening out there some bit of context and a story they can relate with, so that they can know that they are not alone on this journey, and they can also feel that connection that will help them pull through whatever they may be going through right now that's causing them disempowerment.
Yeah, well, that's such a brilliant question, and I love that that's where your focus is, because truly the core of all the work that I do is so that people don't feel alone in whatever they're going through. And I remember years ago when I was an actress, somebody asked me, why are you an actress? And I said, well, if I'm in a movie or on a stage and one person, in the back of the room is struggling with something and feels like they're alone in whatever it is, I don't want them to feel alone, because I think, so much of healing and growth and living our dreams is connection to one another. So, yeah, I can give you the first one that pops into my head is a friend of mine who, is a social worker, and that was really kind of what she thought she wanted to do, and she liked helping people, but there was this kind of restlessness, this kind of, you're kind of going this way, but you're sort of looking this way, knowing that there's something out here that you can't put your finger on. And so it just literally in a few sessions, and it started with doing my workbook. There's a truth in my book called Have Big Dreams. And so I literally said, start with that workbook page. Like, what are your dreams? And you just start, again, there's questions. It's very simple. It's literally almost like a guidebook for third graders. Like, I really love my workbook because it's supportive and loving and really doable. And after 10 minutes, I just sort of sat there and held the space for her, and she sort of wrote through, and she got to the end and she was like, I want to open a yoga studio. Like, that's what I want, but I've never felt the permission to own that. But because you're holding the space for me and you asked me these questions, like, what do I want to dream? Well, since she's asking me, I'm allowed to dream, and she's empowering me. I'm empowering her. So you're allowed to do that. Her entire way of being, it was like she came home to herself, and she was like, burst into tears and was like, but I'm afraid. And so then we ended up working on, okay, she kept her job as a social worker and but we nurtured this dream, and we said, okay, there's obviously what's the vision, and what do you want, and what do you want it to look like, and then what are the tangible action steps that we need to take to make that happen. And I think it was 6 months at the most, she had opened this yoga studio. And it's just, for me, the most gratifying. And I have, a million stories of that. I had a client who was in a corporate job and sort of a million reasons why she should stay. And then at the end of the day, like, she wanted to be home with her kids. Her kids were really young, and she felt like this was a window of time. And I said, my kids are now 7 and 11, but this window lasts for a short time. They'll be 18, they'll be gone. And I said, you're allowed to want to be a present parent and not have to be in the rat race. I live in New York City, right? I'm literally, as we're taping this, I'm staring at, hundreds of people in offices. And society has said, the corner office, the high salary, the clout, the title, and for certain people, that's a brilliant path, and that's the fulfilling path, and that's the rewarding path. But for a lot of people, it's, well, I should be doing this, but I want to be doing this. And I think and then I don't want these answers to be so long, but another page from my book that pops into my head is called Define Your Success, and it really is, what is success to you? And I think that exercise with my clients has been incredibly helpful, because this woman who wanted to be a mom, she got to the end of this, well, what is success for you, if you didn't listen to any definitions from family or society? And she's like, being the best mom that I can be, being present and being there for my kids, and being there, the person that gets them off the bus and the person that makes them breakfast and is just present. And I was like, then leaving that corporate job, or even going part-time, whatever that is, that's success to you. So don't care if anyone says, well, it's success to, have a nanny and go to your job. And, so I think it's really across all walks of life. And it is the most rewarding thing to see someone click and go, I forgot I had a dream. Like, I forgot I love to paint. Like, I forgot I fill in the blank. And so that's my favorite thing. And to just see people come alive and be creative again and excited about life and really coming home to themselves.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, you said something really profound, and this brings me back to something that I actually would like to read. It's about 7 categories of people that need to ignite their creativity, or I could put it like 7 categories of people that need to be empowered to manifest their creativity. You touched on, in your examples, a category that I refer to as the dormant creatives, and there are 7 of them. And I just want to, for the purpose of those who are listening, to get this context. For dormant creatives, you have ideas, gifts, and skills that are dormant due to not knowing what to do with them or how to do them. So you're frustrated. You're taking your ideas, skills, and gifts to the grave, and you have no idea how to make a U-turn. And that's the category where some of the examples you gave falls into, where these people, they actually wanted more, but they just did not know how to reach into the inner recesses of themselves to pull these things out. So they left these ideas, these gifts, these dreams, they left them dormant until they met you, and you gave them a framework that empowered them to pull these things, to dig out these ideas, dig out these dreams that have been buried in the dirt of forgetfulness, all their lives. Probably they would have gone to their grave never reaching for this part of themselves. They would have lived ordinary lives and just gone through the routine of life. But when they felt that push and they felt empowered to reach for that dream, reach for that goal, they found that they could have been more all the while, even though they were at a particular place, a stagnant place for a long time. And, this is so profound, because I've met a lot of people who are in this particular scenario where they have dormant ideas. They have so much that they could be that they are not because of that dormancy. And then there's the next category, the suppressed creatives. These are people who have ideas and skills. They know what to do with them, but due to environmental restrictions, policies, superstition, religious beliefs, or ignorance, they suppress those creative ideas, those gifts, those skills, those talents, those dreams, right? There's the lost creative, people who have lost touch with their creative side because they don't even remember what it feels like to add value to people. There's the discouraged creatives. There's the unrecognized creatives, people who are not feeling appreciated enough for, their ideas, right? There's a number of people who are in all these categories that need to be empowered. There's the stagnant creatives, there's the fearful creatives. Now, I went through all of that really fast, but in my book there's a lot more detail about all these categories and how these people can actually come out of those different blockers, those different things that hold them back, and manifest their creativity. And you have shared some really powerful truths also that help people to reach for their goals, to reach for their dreams. So I want to bring you to in this scenario where we have people who are discouraged creatives. These are people who, they don't have money to fund their ideas, they don't have capital, they don't have family support, they don't have social media following, they don't have the resources they think they need to go from where they are to where they want to be, to go from idea to tangible solutions or profitable creations. How can such people, reach for their dreams and reach for their goals?
First of all, I love your categories. I think that's so inventive. I mean, I've never heard it described that way, and I think that's really a brilliant way to describe it. It even made me reflect on sort of my own journey in different facets: suppressed, discouraged, fearful. And so I just first want to acknowledge the work that you're doing, because I think that's so profound in sort of, pinpointing who we are and where we're struggling and kind of what the block is that's holding us back. And so I love that so much.
Wow,
yeah,
thank you.
No, I love when it's, it's such a different way to look at things. And I think, to your point, as you say, to ignite this creativity and the spark and the plug and the flow is truly where so many of our best ideas and our dreams sort of come to life. And so for me, I think, and I think we're all going to experience these words differently, right? Like discouraged could mean something to me, different to me than it means to you, person X, person Y, whatever. For me, I actually really resonate with being a discouraged kind of creative right now. And I feel like for me, I don't necessarily have the influence and the impact. And, I sort of envision this $1 billion global empire. So I have huge dreams, and I'm certainly not where I want to be yet. But I think that what really came to me and was like so strongly the through line in thinking about a discouraged creative is that I think, this is where I've really had to pivot, and I've really had to take my own advice and go within and get quiet with myself, because I think the discouraged creative, in my opinion, is someone who's looking for external validation. I think that, we think we need the resources to start. We need the social media followers to start. We need the accolades or the adoration or the approval from other people to start, to unleash that inner knowing or creativity or whatever, intuition, whatever word resonates with people. And I think so much, there's a page in my book that pops into my head, which is, talks about I think it's called Carve Your Own Path. And it's, really understanding that entrepreneurs, anyone that's creative, whatever that is, to me, creativity is doing something new, right? Inventing something, whether it's a picture you draw, a bracelet you make, a company you build. Being creative really is, there's a newness and sort of, it's creation, right? It's come from the word creation.
Hey, have you ever desired to write a book or become a published author, but somehow you don't know what to write about, you don't know what to call what you write about, you don't know how to write what you want to write about, or you don't know how to finish what you started writing about? Maybe you started writing and you're stuck for years, or maybe you even finished writing, but you don't know what to do with your manuscript, or you don't have a publisher. No one wants to give you a publishing contract, and so you are stuck. Well, I've got good news for you. There are 8 things stopping you from writing your first book, and I have a free training that will help you overcome all of these 8 things holding you back. And once you're able to overcome these 8 things, you'll be able to write your first book in 30 days. Yes, you heard me right, 30 days. After you watch that training, you're going to get my free ebook on your email that will show you how to write a book profitably, even if you hate writing or you don't know what to write, where to start, or how to finish. If you're tired of postponing your desire and dream to become a published author or to write your first book, click the link below this video, register for this training, and watch it right away. Yeah.
So I think that,
Absolutely.
really so much of that is trusting that those external things that are making us feel discouraged are actually, the effect rather than the cause. And I think when we go back to ourselves and it's like, okay, but what do I want to create? Like, what is my own path that I want to carve? What is the gold sort of in undiscovered lands that I want to find? And I think when we sort of flip the equation and we put our energy in ourselves, and sort of, it does take a leap of faith. It takes a lot of belief in yourself. It takes a lot of, there's another page in my book called Be Crazy, and I reference, the Apple ad campaign, which is saying the crazy ones are the ones that change the world, right? I've been called crazy by pretty much everyone in the world. I'm like, I'm going to build this, empire and empower women, and it's sort of like, or you could just get a job. Like, okay, she's a little crazy. And I think that the discouragement comes from this waiting on external factors to do what we want to do. And so I think if we can sort of either cut that cord and sort of come back to ourselves and, what would make you feel encouraged, right? Like, what would be the flip side of that? I think, quite honestly, it would be creating on your, with your own permission, doing what you want to do, like jumping off that cliff, taking that leap. And I think that, I so love the way that you've broken down these parts of creativity, and I can see how they all flow together, because I think also on some level, across all the different, 7 that you shared, I think there's a lot of fear. I think there's also a lot of rejection. I think the older you get, the more you've experienced, the more heartbreak I've been through, the more broken dreams, the more rejection I've had, the more, speaking opportunities that I was excited about that didn't pan out. And so I think that our dreams, like, as life happens, our dreams can sort of get chipped away at. And so I think really trying to go back to that inner spark of, like, if no one else was around, if you weren't waiting on permission from anyone else, what would you want to do, right? And it's such a simple question, and I think you can be afraid to dream, right? Like, well, I had my heart broken before, that dream didn't work out. And so I think it's really recovering that, like, childlike belief in ourselves, and again, I think that discouragement comes from waiting on external things to live our dreams.
Yeah, and that's really profound, because that external validation, it seems like almost every human has to battle with it, that demon, and overcome it to really come out there, put themselves out there and reach for their goals, or live their dreams, or manifest their potential, unleash their creativity. And I would love for you to speak to the part of, capital, like people who think they need more money before they can venture into what they want to venture into. Like, for the lady who wanted to start a yoga studio, did she have any challenge with money? How do you deal with clients who are going through your framework, who have a challenge with money to start? How do you empower such people?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Very sort of nuts and bolts. I think for her, she ended up getting a small business loan, and that was something that we sort of walked through. I had another client who, borrowed $10,000 from her dad as a loan, not as a gift. I think that we also all need a lot less money than we think we do, right? Obviously, if you want to build you decide that you want to be a contractor, right? And you want to go build your first house, you're going to need a certain amount of capital for the wood, for the paint, for the foundation, for the concrete, for the architect, right? There are certain dreams that just have a higher price tag. But I think that I have often found, once you connect to the dream, once it's authentic and feels right, the money somehow shows up, right? Someone was like, I'm trying to think of, an example. Someone wanted to write a book, right? And said, I can't hire a publisher, whatever. And I said, well, I self-published my book. It's actually free. You can do it on Amazon. So whether the amount of money arrives or the solution that you didn't think of, he's like, I didn't know you could self-publish on Amazon. It's print on demand. It's like, there's no upfront costs, right? So I think that the money piece, I think it's a great question, because I think a lot of times the money part is just fear presenting itself in another form of, I can't do this because of the money, right? And the other part too, I think your dream often matches. I think that people that have, say to build a house, right? If you sort of are thinking of that, like, it's usually the amount of money that's available to you, whether it's what you have, someone was like, I didn't even think about my retirement account. I can, take $20,000 out of my retirement account and start this, skin line that a client of mine wanted to start. Like, the money is always sort of there. And I think the second you sort of take that step forward and own that dream and say, you know what? I'm going to research, like, how much does it cost to rent a yoga space, and how much does it cost to invest in mats, and how much would I have to pay for electricity? Once you take the steps to say, like, I'm serious about the dream, it's amazing how, oh, actually, you know what? There's a yoga studio down the street that never opened after COVID, and they have 25 mats that they're just sitting there and they're happy to donate them, right? So I think whether it's a dollar amount or the resources that you need to make your dream, and again, it's just taking the first step too, right? We're not going to build the house in a day, but do you have enough money to buy the wood or to pour the concrete or things like that? I find that it's magic, and there are just so many miracles that like happen when you take the step forward. Because I think following your heart and living your dream is the most courageous thing you can do, and I think we live in a world that wants to support that, and so opportunities are everywhere. I really, and I know, and I also want to hold the space. I know for people listening that maybe aren't as spiritual, this can seem a lot like woo, like, oh great, I'm just gonna, magically walk down the street and find $1 million. But I have seen in my experience, in the results that I get, in my programs, that it just always sort of comes together. There's, oh, you know what, my aunt, unfortunately my aunt had passed away and she left me, a trust of this, and I never even thought about that. But now that I have a dream and a desire and something to put it towards, boom, it pops into your head. So I think that the money is a reality, but I think a lot of times, that can also be fear manifesting itself in a reason to maybe not take the risk.
Absolutely. And what you said really resonates with the way I also see it, because what I usually tell people who I engage with and they tell me, oh, I don't have money, oh, I don't have capital, oh, there's no investor, oh, people don't believe in me, so I don't have enough support, is that I tell them, okay, if you're creative and you identify that your problem is a lack of funding or a lack of capital or a lack of resources or a lack of money, you should understand that creativity is there to help you solve 100%. Problems. And so through creativity, you'll be able to figure out a solution to that lack of funding problem, that lack of money, lack of capital, lack of resource problem, and figure out a workaround that can help you unblock yourself and get going till every other thing shows up, and that is so remarkable. And that's what I believe also, that most times we want things to show up first before we take the leap. And I've seen people who think like that. When those things actually show up, they still don't take the leap, because it's more than, I've seen people who are wealthy but they can't manifest their creativity. So it's really not an external force. Those external factors are just contributing factors. They are not the determining factors. The determining factors are the internal beliefs that we hold that disempower us, that puts a break in our movement, those mindsets that we have. And the moment we release the brakes, the moment we release our creativity, the moment we see that we have all that we need to be what we need to be in the now, right? We begin to pull like a magnetic force. We begin to attract the men, the materials, the resources, the finances, and even the circumstances to make these ideas come to pass, to make these dreams come to pass, to go from idea to tangible creation. And it's so fascinating. Having said that, I'd like to ask you, like, what are your biggest challenges in walking this journey that you've walked in the past few years? You talked about being an actress and then rediscovering yourself and towing this path. What have your biggest challenges been, and how have you overcome them? Sometimes when you're a thought leader, when you're someone like yourself who encourages people, who empowers people, who has a program that helps people, it looks like you don't have any challenges, and people tend to look at you as, a demigod. But I just want to hear that side of you that helps us know that also you've also had your own fair share of challenges and how you overcame them.
Of course. Oh my God, I'm so glad you asked that question, because I think especially in the world of social media now, as we were previously talking about external validation, I think that we can all think that everybody is like living their best day, having no struggles, nothing. And let me tell you, I am the first person to blow all of that out of the water. And I am, 100% here to share the authenticity of my journey. And I think that for me, the biggest biggest struggle is belief in myself. And I think that the size and the magnitude of my dreams, I feel like as a little girl, I felt this enormous destiny. And I was actually talking to a friend the other day about how it's equal parts inspiring and this huge burden to bear. Because I think that every day that I am not sort of living this huge potential that I feels like a failure. And so I think that for me, that belief in myself, and I think that, at the core, I think one of our deepest wounds that we all struggle with is that none of us feel like we're enough. No matter what we're doing, achieving, what we have, where we're going, what we're experiencing, there's this sort of human struggle to feel like wherever we are, whatever we're doing in this moment, we are enough. It might mean that we want more down the road, but right now we as individuals are enough. So I think the first thing is belief in myself. I think also in terms of seeing something that doesn't exist, right? I see the vision for a company and a brand and, so many things based on my book that no one else sees because it's my dream, right? The same way your brilliance around how you describe the 7 different, types of creativity, that's your dream. So to other people, it's like, okay, that doesn't really make a lot of sense, but he's going to do that. And she's over here thinking, she's going to have a whole sweatshirt line with the truths from her book. Like, okay. But the part is we are the inventors. Like we are the ones that have the idea, that have the, that seed of creation has been planted in each of us. So seeing something that maybe no one else gets and continuing to believe in kind of that intangible thing that you want to build but doesn't exist in the world, for me, has been an enormous struggle. And I would say, again, I could literally do another podcast about all my challenges. I would say the other really big thing is about 4 years ago, I struggled deeply with depression. I was suicidal. I was spent about the better part of a year in and out of mental health facilities, and really, having that as part of my journey now, and really combating the shame and combating the guilt and, the label of like, oh, you locked up in a loony bin. I mean, it's incredible how cruel the world is around mental health struggles. And so much for me now is to be an advocate and to be a voice and to sort of shatter all of those labels around, we don't judge someone who goes to the gym wanting to, increase their muscle or lose 15 pounds, but someone that, is choosing to go to therapy or goes to a mental health facility. There's so much like, oh God, they're really broken, stay away from them. And so I think having this part of my journey, one, to come back from it, one, to come back from depression and not wanting to live and, feeling like this shamed human being that had somehow screwed up her whole life. And, here I am, I'm Jenny Powers, and I was, the perfect child, the oldest child of an oldest, all this pressure to be perfect and to be good every day and to handle it all. And it all fell apart. And so I think, one, to come back from that struggle and being an entrepreneur and starting my own company was one of the variables that led to my struggle. I mean, I was completely overwhelmed. I didn't realize how hard it is to build a company, how isolating it is, how lonely it can feel. So, that journey really contributed to the hardest stretch of my life. And then, on top of that, which plays into my first thing that I shared, to believe in myself again, to be like, I failed. Like in my mind, I failed, right? Like I struggled with mental health and I was labeled this and I was labeled that. And I was told I was going to be, on 47 antidepressants for the rest of my life. I was sort of felt almost like this thrown out with the bathwater. Like, no, well, that's, sort of it for her. And so to come back and to say, you know what? But I still believe. I still believe in who I am. I still believe my story's different now, and my message is different, and my passion is different, and what I think it is to be empowered is different than it was before my struggles. But to anyone out there that's watching this, whether it's depression or anxiety or fear and whether it feels like 100 or it feels like a 2 on some days, you're not alone, and we all go through these journeys. And I am so passionate about sharing my story to say that I never believed I could get to this place again, and here I am living an incredibly happy life and still fighting for my dreams and still wanting to make an impact on the world. And I'm like, if I can come back from that, then really truly whatever you're going through right now is, you're not alone. You will find the light again. And that's why I truly believe that, the resources that I create and the things that you do, that sort of supportive, inspiring, empowering work is what we all need to get through the challenges and the struggles that 100% of us go through. I think, one of my favorite, it's not a positive thing, but everybody's fighting a battle that you know nothing about. And I don't say that to be depressed, but I say that to just be quite honest, that we can look on the outside, especially I live in New York City. Everyone appears to be like living their best, richest, most, fabulous day ever. And I think New York has like one of the highest, mental health sort of struggles of anywhere because of the intensity, because of the stress, because of the pressure. So I have many challenges, and this is not, this is a very authentic, real human experience, and I'm here to sort of always be honest about that.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And now that you brought that up, and please correct me if I'm wrong or share your perspective if it's different from what I think. I believe that there are many things that lead to depression, but one of the things that I believe can lead to depression is not manifesting your creativity, not being what you can be. I feel like potential creatives could find themselves going the path of depression if they don't ignite their creativity, if they don't become creative, if they don't release their potential, if they don't tap into their inner genius. That vacuum in them that's seeking to be filled, that void in them just grows and grows, and because they don't know how to fulfill it, they don't know the right things to look at. They don't know that it's just their gifts, yearning for expression that they have not given attention to, that's causing them those feelings and those thoughts, right? And so they just go down that path. What do you think about that perspective to this conversation?
I think you're 100% right. I think that, the image that just came to me is like a tulip that knows it's a tulip and is ready to be a tulip, but can't break through the ground, can't break through the dirt, and can't sort of explode into this expression of amazingness that this tulip is born to be. And I think that whatever the reasons are that tulip, to keep going with this analogy, there's not enough sunlight, there's not enough water, there's not enough sort of strength in the root system, right? I think if we think about ourselves in that way, in terms of sort of breaking through the soil to live our dreams, you're dying to be a tulip, right? I mean, for me, that is one of the greatest, to go back to the last question, one of the greatest struggles is that I know I have this potential inside of me. I know that my vision was given to me for a reason. I mean, I woke up in the middle of the night, the empowered woman, my middle initial, like that's not something that I thought of, manifest, like that was just, boom, a spark of inspiration. And so I think that, to your point, unlived dreams, I think, are one of the most suffocating factors in the entire world. And I think for me, my biggest struggle my biggest cause of my particular depression was isolation. I think that I'd gone through a number of things that really made me sort of feel ashamed, feel like a failure, not be the person that I sort of wanted to be. And I really started to retreat. I was in a relationship, and, my current partner had 2 little kids, and I, had moved in with them, and I was like, very much in love with him and loved them, but I didn't want to be a parent, and I didn't want to go to the playground at 7 a.m, and that didn't feel like my dream. And so I think that to sort of repress that and continue to be like, but I'm fine and I'm good and whatever the dreams are. I think there's so much also discussion around dreams. Like it's this one big thing, right? Like for me, it's Oprah Winfrey reads my book and I'm on Super Soul Sunday, right? I would say that's my biggest dream, and I'm sticking to it. But we all have little dreams too. You know what? I want to wake up in the morning and not feel anxious. You know what? I really want to, physically feel better, and I want to carve out time. I have a 6-month-old, and I really want to carve out time to, do a Pilates video for 20 minutes and sort of get back to connecting to my body. I think we can have these huge, big dreams, but we have little ones too. You know what? I want to eat healthier. Like I really want to maybe try being a vegetarian. That would be kind of cool. And so I think we have to hold the space for the big, huge, go get 'em, nail it, change the world dreams, but also kind of the littler ones that also, kind of inspire us and fulfill us. And I think those repressed, suppressed, whatever the word is, as you said, these unlived dreams, I think it cuts off the oxygen. And I do think that I am on this earth to, whether tell one person or 1 billion people, that you are allowed to live your dreams. You are allowed to trust that instinct and want to follow that vision and create, that beautiful expression of your creativity. And I think that a lot of us just need permission. I think we're that tulip that's like, yeah, okay, like I'm ready to break through, but who's gonna let me know when to go? And I think it's go, grow, like express. And it's probably going to be messy. It's probably going to be hard. You're probably going to, first fall down this way and then fall down that way. But at least you're trying. At least you can go for it. And one of the lines in my book that comes to me, I think the truth is endure rejection. And I say, picture yourself standing on the edge of a cliff, right? That's an analogy we all talk about. I truly believe that the pain that you will feel if you never jump, if you never try, if you never go for that dream, will always be greater than the pain that you feel if you fall. And I think as we get older, I've fallen, I've struggled with depression. I'm like, maybe I'll just, kind of call it even and live this life. But that suffocated dream is still keeping me safe on that cliff. But that pain is way, way, way bigger than anything you'll feel if you go for it and try. Because I truly believe the world is wired for all of us to leave our unique creative imprint on the world, and that is the dream that we've each been given.
Wow, amazing. The pain that you feel if you do not try will be greater than the pain that you feel if you at least try. Wow, that's such a phenomenal quote, and I think that will be a very good thing to take from this conversation. For those who are listening to us, I want, if there's nothing you get from what we've said today, just know this: the pain that you feel for not giving it a try is going to be greater than the pain that you feel for trying and probably failing and trying again till you get it. So that is amazing. Thank you so much, Jenny Powers. It was such a phenomenal conversation with you. You're such an amazing guest, and I want to say thank you for joining the show. I feel this is a very good place to bring the conversation to a close. I know you're a very busy person, so I have to be respectful of your time. And to our listeners out there, I believe you found some value from what we've shared today. Maybe you're listening to this and you felt disempowered to go for your dreams, to live your dreams. You're scared, you're afraid, you feel suppressed, depressed, oppressed, you feel stagnant, your ideas are dormant. If you have to listen to this episode over and over again, please do. But one thing I know for sure is that based off this conversation, you're going to get that that spark that you need again. And if you even have to go back to previous episodes to just get yourself up to speed and get yourself fired up, please do. And then I'd like to also recommend that you talk to someone about this conversation that you just listened to. Share it, like it, drop a review, drop a comment, shoot me an email if you'd like to give a feedback or something. So before I let you go, Jenny, do you want to tell us how we can get connected with you? I know you have a program. If you'd like to just tell us more about how we can get into all of this, I would appreciate it before I let you go.
Of course. And first of all, I just want to say thank you so much. This has honestly been one of my favorite conversations. And I do this often, and this really is one that's going to resonate. And you really have sparked my kind of curiosity around this idea of creativity and kind of the 7 things that you have shared. And so I just want to honor you and thank you for showing up, as you are, because I think that people like you are the reason that people like me keep going and keep, connected to my creativity and giving me the permission to kind of just jump off the cliff. So I really want to honor you, and I'm so thrilled. This has been such a highlight for me, and I'm honored to share this moment with your audience. And in terms of getting in touch with me, I'm on Instagram at Empowered by Jenny. My website is jennypowers.com, which is JENNYPOWERS. Send me an email, send me a DM. I am so accessible. I love meeting people. I love connecting. I respond to every one of them. And the other thing I would say, my book, my workbook, and my journal are all available on Amazon. And I really, this is not self-promotion, whatever, but I do truly believe if something in this episode resonated with you, I do think that the book is really simple. You can read 1 page a day. The workbook, you can do 1 page, but it's really there to really, I think, support you and hopefully awaken you and enable you and empower you to return to yourself. And I think that's so much of the mission that you're on as well. And so they're really, resources. Go on Amazon, order them. I hope it just brings back that sort of creative spark that I think we all are dying to express in the world. And so I am here, and I look forward to meeting many of you. And again, just thank you for this opportunity. This has really been just a really powerful conversation.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And absolutely, you're free to share all your wonderful resources with us. The reason I brought you here is because I know that you have something to offer. And if you have a book, if you have a program, a course that can take us to the next level, I'm excited to share it with the audience. And I believe they'll be excited to benefit from that. So you're in good hands, you're in a safe place, and everyone listening is going to be excited to go get those things, go get your resources and materials. I'm going to drop those links on the show notes for those listening, so you don't have to worry about, getting the spelling right and getting the links right, because I've got you covered. Thank you all once again. Thank you, Jenny Powers. Watch out for the next episode for those listening. Till then, have a good one.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.